Welcome to Chemo Glow, where the glow doesn't define me. I define the glow. Like I have this big grin on my face right now. Every time I say that statement, I really mean it. The glow doesn't define me. I define the glow. Normally, guys, I do an intro from a moment in the past to represent the present. But this guest that I have on just reminded me why I'm doing what I'm doing. She talks about having moving mountain faith. Think about that. That's deep. So I hope you guys enjoy this podcast. Peace. Hi guys, this is Regina with Chemo Glow, and I am speaking with a dear friend of mine. I'm going to let her introduce herself, and then we're going to talk about this thing called Chemo Glow. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Sakira, and I am a 5-year survivor.
Yes, it's been 5 years.
Yes, 5 years.
5 years. How long have we known each other?
I want to say we met probably about 4 or 5 years before I was diagnosed. So I want to say we've known each other for about 9 years or so, 9 or 10 years.
Because I've been married, oh my goodness, for 9 years.
Yes.
So I met you through our girl C, Miss Cassandra, who I hope to have on this podcast soon. So we met that long ago. How did we meet again? Like, I know we met through Cassandra.
We were on a girls trip. So Cassandra's annual girls trip that she plans, and we met. We were in the mountains. Yes, I remember it so well. Great weekend as always.
We just recently went on one.
I say.
I forgot. We just came off a memorable weekend, and it actually has probably been that long since I've been on one. Because when I was married, I was diagnosed, and my last weekend that I went on one, I was actually coming out of chemo, and my hair was growing back. So I met you before then, and then after that, my hair was growing back, and then I had a couple of hiccups, so I was able to enjoy the best one yet.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about how the glow has affected you. And when I say the glow, I mean just being diagnosed with cancer, if you had any experience with it beforehand, because I know you and your sister helped me out when I was going through. Your guys were so kind to me when I was going through. So just as a friend, when you hear another friend say, hey, I have cancer, how does that affect you?
And I just recently went through this.
Yes.
I think it deepens your understanding of why you went through it, right? I think when you're first diagnosed, you always, and everyone I've ever talked to who's been diagnosed has said the same thing. You always immediately think about, why me? Why do I have this? Why not someone else? And it takes a little bit of time, and it's part of the whole process before you get to that point where you're like, I went through this so I could be a blessing to someone else. And I really do believe that. And like I said, it takes time to get there, but you eventually reach that point, especially when you look and see the lives that you're touching and the individuals who were touched by your story and how your journey helps someone else along the way as well. So I would definitely say that's what I think about when I hear those words.
Finding that out, that's the reason why I do the podcast. That's why I do the glow, simply because I don't know who I'm going to touch or who's going to give me a call or who I need to go to a doctor's appointment with or just who I need to let somebody scream and say whatever they want. But there has to be a purpose in this. So how old were you when you were diagnosed?
I was 39.
39. And tell me how that went.
So it actually started back in April of 2014. I had gone in for a mammogram, and I actually was going to a new OBGYN doctor or gynecologist. And she basically said she'd like to get a baseline for all her patients who were over 35. Oh. So I went in for a mammogram, and that was April, and they saw a spot then, but they were basically like, the radiologist was basically like, I don't think it's anything. We're going to give it about 6 months and come back in. Well, in October of 2014, I went to Jamaica to celebrate my best friend's 40th birthday. And so when I was there, I actually was in the shower, and I started feeling my left breast, and I could feel a bump. And I was like, oh, I'm going back. I don't think it's anything. I'm not going to worry about it. So shortly after I got back, that was about mid-October, I went in for a follow-up mammogram. And when I went in for that follow-up mammogram, I made the mistake of going alone. Don't know. Yeah. I will never do that again. And I'll advise anyone to not do that. But I went alone, and after about being there, I want to say about 15, 20 minutes, they started the initial mammogram, and then they went and did the ultrasound where they actually put the gel on your breast and put the scanner on there. But I was there for like 45 minutes. So Steve, my husband, is like texting me, and I can't respond. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And so I would say probably about 15 minutes after that, the radiologist came in and said they wanted to do a biopsy. They found 2 spots. They found one in my left breast and then 2 in my right, and they wanted to biopsy those. So of course I left there in tears. Yes. No one there with me. So I finally was able to call Steve and tell him about it. So it just was stressful. It's stressful. So, interesting thing though, the weekend before I had my biopsy, so my biopsy was done on a Monday, and I always get the date wrong, but it was sometime the week of November 13th in 2014. But that weekend before that, I had gone to a conference for church in the mountains at Lake Junaluska. And while there, the conference basically thing was about going deeper with God, which I thought was so interesting in the timing of it. Great conference. I walked out of there just feeling confident and just ready for whatever God had for me. So that Monday I went in for the biopsy. My manager at that time, who was amazing, told me to stay home until I got the results. So I worked from home, and I remember Wednesday morning I was on a conference call, and it was around 10, a little after 10, and I saw the phone number come across from the radiologist, and so I answered the phone, and she was like, unfortunately. And so as soon as you hear the word unfortunately, everything else she said after that, I was like, I'm going to need you to repeat it, because I laughed for a minute. And, after then, everything's full speed ahead. I had a breast navigator the same day. They were already making appointments. So that's basically how it all went down.
Now, was your husband home when you received the phone call?
He was not. And so I immediately called him, and he came home from work. My second phone call was to my twin sister, of course. And then with my other brothers and sisters, what I did is that I actually told the spouses. So I did not tell my brothers and sisters directly, because I don't know if you've experienced it, but I feel like that's the hardest thing to say to someone.
It is.
Because you're thinking about, like, you're already, usually when you're telling someone, you've already received the news, you've kind of processed it, and you're working through it, right? But then to have to go to someone and say I have cancer.
Several times. I made it where my husband was the one. And now I see how hard that had to be on him to tell everybody. But you're still trying to process it. And you're still trying to, come to terms with it. And have to keep repeating it makes it real. And it's already real, but it's like, how many times going to repeat it? And then you don't know what they're going to say or do. And right now, you don't have the energy to take on anybody's crying, you're barely making it. So you told the spouses, that's interesting. Okay. Yeah. All right.
And so I had the spouses tell the brothers and sisters.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I did. The only other person I did tell was my dad and my stepmom.
Okay.
And just, I think for me, the hardest thing was I was still processing it, and I just was thinking about the other people and how they were going to feel when I told them how sad they would be, how worried they would be. You kind of, I think in the beginning you kind of take those energies in from other people, but as you're going through the process, you learn that you have to release those energies because you have to make yourself the priority.
How hard was that for you?
Let people deal with that. I would say very hard because I'm just a caretaker by heart. That's just my nature. So I think for me, it was hard getting to the point of, okay, Sakira, this is your journey. You're going to have to figure this out. And there are going to be people that are going to be upset. They're going to be, they're going to say things that you probably wouldn't expect them to say. But you just have to remain, I guess, focused on the outcome and your well-being, right? That's what's at the top of the list. Okay. And then for me, I have 2 children. So they were younger, it's been 5 years. So Jordan, he's 17 now. So he was 11, 12, and then Lauren's 12. Now, so she was about the 6 or 7 range, right? So for me, the 3, my husband and the 2 of them were the most important people at that point that I was concerned about. Like, I wanted to know how they were feeling, what they were processing, how they were dealing with it. And so that had, me and them became my focus. That was what was number 1 on my list.
Well, who was your inner circle? Once you were starting to process it, who was that inner circle that you utilized or pulled from to help you through the process?
I would definitely say you, number 1.
Well, thank you.
The one who came down from Raleigh to take me and go with me to Durham to go with me to my appointment. I am so grateful. You have touched a number of lives, but I am truly grateful for the role you served in my life. I would say my twin sister, she was good to talk to. Yes. Steve, of course. Yes. He should have been right there with you.
Your husband is amazing. And he keeps a clean house, too. I cannot. I'm like, who's cooking and cleaning?
Cleanliness is next to godliness.
He had a clean house. I was just happy that y'all let me get in the car with y'all and ride with you.
And we fed you. Remember we fed you
y'all fed me? I was like, okay, when's your next appointment? Because I need to be here.
I'm coming to eat.
And what's crazy is I met you through someone else. Yeah, and the fact that we had a great relationship that you would call on was amazing for me. Like it truly touched me when I was like, okay, it's hard to hear that a friend has cancer, but my journey can't be in vain.
Yeah.
So you were about to say something?
I was going to say too, my dad and my stepmom. They were very integral after my first surgery. Steve was out for a few days, about a week or so from work, and then he had to go back, and I was out for 8 weeks. So the first 4 weeks are pretty, I wasn't very mobile. But they were there every day. They did not spend the night, but they would stay late to 11, 12, and they'd be back over in the morning. My dad's a cooker. So I never lost my appetite through this whole process.
Oh, wow. So
he cooked. I had great meals every day. I also had a meal train too, but I was going to say
you definitely had the meal train. Now, is it your stepmother? Is she the one that can bake that pistachio cake? Who baked?
No, that's Nakara's. That's my twin sister's mother-in-law.
Let me say, all of y'all come through. Let me tell you, when I was in treatment, and just so happened your sister lived around the corner down the street and knew my husband before I knew my husband. And you guys would bring me food, make sure I had what I needed. Like, again, the connection was so strong. So you have a cooking family.
Yes, and I got it in my
genes too. Y'all do. So, what was your treatment? So, what were your treatments?
So when I went in for that first appointment and you were there with me, they basically went through my diagnosis and kind of what my treatment plan options were. Initially, when I went in, the doctor thought, well, I may need some chemo, but after they went in and actually got the stage of the cancer, he basically said if I went, if I did a mammogram, did a mastectomy, that I would not have to have chemo.
Okay.
The radiation was still on the table, but the chemo was off the table if I decided to do mastectomy. And I don't know if I've said it or not, but I only had the cancer in my left breast. My right breast was fine. Okay. And so, of course, I opted for that. And I think I opted for it because I knew your journey with chemo. I also talked to Jeanette Gregory. You put me in contact with her. Amazing. Yes. And just hearing about the chemo, how chemo, the long-term effects of chemo, right? You have the short-term effects and you have your long-term effects.
And you have the effects that they don't even know about yet.
Yeah. And so for me, it was like this breast is just aesthetic. I was done having children. I didn't need it to feed them. So I was like, just take it. The radiation piece, though, they made the decision that I wouldn't need it after I went in I actually had to go in for an appointment with the I forgot what kind of doctor does the radiation, but the radiologist. And they are basically, they looked at my stage and kind of just if they, from an occurrence perspective, what those percentages look like, if it would come back or not. And so they decided I wouldn't need radiation too. So of course I went that route. I was prepared to do chemo if I needed to, but hearing that was just truly a blessing. Okay. Truly a blessing. And so the surgery that I went with that I had done, it's called DEEP. It's DIEP. And it's basically where they took the fat, the muscles, the blood vessels, and the skin from my stomach, and they kind of do a modified tummy tuck, I guess. Yeah. And they create your breast out of your body, your own body. So I don't have an implant. So my breast that I have, my left breast is actually formed from my own body. I call it my foob.
There you go. I tried
my own body.
I tried to get them to do that. They was like, you don't have enough fat. And I was like, who are you looking at? Because I see plenty around this belly. But So how was the recovery with that?
So recovery was 8 weeks. The first 4 weeks, I wouldn't say necessarily like bedridden because I was walking around upstairs. I could not go down the stairs. So I came up the stairs the first day when I came home from the hospital, but I was upstairs for about 4 weeks. And it's truly, I was on a few groups, like Facebook groups, and another group that I was a part of with individual ladies who had the same surgery. And everyone kept saying, when you get to week 4, it's going to be like everything's going to be, it's going to feel like you're a different person. So I just kept waiting for that 4th week. And sure enough, week 4 came and I started feeling like myself. I did have drains. So I came home with drains as well. I had, because of the type of surgery, they cut you from hip to hip. I had 2 in my abdomen, lower abdomen area, and then 1 in the left breast as well. After that, I think I had 5 other surgeries that year. The same year. Wow. And they were all reconstructive surgeries. So, I went in one time, I did a lift on the right, and I had to go in and work on the nipple and on the breast that was not, and did not have cancer in it. And so I ended up having about, I think it was 5 more surgeries after that.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes, it's like crazy, but it was all done a year, and now I love what I mean.
You love the results, don't you?
The plastic surgeon was amazing, and I'm like, I need to call him back about these size.
No, can I get a mommy tuck? And can you put that on my insurance as?
Can we get this backpack on?
You did such an amazing job.
I know. I'm like, I don't even need no referral. I know firsthand what you are capable of doing.
So how has recovery been for you? And when I say recovery, I mean mentally, physically, spiritually. How has it been, not just for you, but for your family?
I think I'll start with me. I think the one thing that people don't realize who have never had cancer is that it's always going to be mental for you. And what I mean by that is that whenever something goes wrong or something doesn't feel right or look right, like I just had a recent scare 2 weeks ago. I had a mole that grew on my right breast, and it grew in a matter of like a month. It didn't look like a normal mole. It looked like someone had just splattered something dark on my skin. and it was on the breast that wasn't affected. So that made me even more worried. I was thinking melanoma or some type of skin cancer. And so I had to go into a dermatologist, and he did I think it's called a punch biopsy, and it just came back benign. But like when, if I hadn't had cancer previously, I probably would not have even, paid attention to that or noticed that. It has also made me a true advocate of my own health.
Yes, I preach that. Be an advocate of your own health care.
I first had called the oncologist 2 weeks ago. He couldn't see me until the end of April. And I was like, that's not going to work for me. I know that we're in this crazy environment with this COVID-19, but I'm like, no, I need to see somebody sooner than that. And so I called the dermatologist and got in. But you definitely become an advocate for your own health. And I think that even like extends to my family as well. Like I'm always wanting to make sure they're good. If, things are going on, get in, get it checked out. I think for my family, my kids, I would say, I know it affected them, but I have not really seen, neither one of them were very emotional about it. Let me put it that way. So I don't know if it's just because children are so resilient and they, they saw me go through it and they saw that I was better. And so they were good once they saw that I was better. I do know that when I came out of surgery that first day, Steve and I FaceTimed them. And they would not look at me. Like they wouldn't. I was like, I'm here. You can see my face. Yeah. They would not come into sight into the camera. So I don't know if they just didn't want to see me like that or what it was. And then at that time, they couldn't come to the hospital. I wanted because it was still flu season.
Yes.
And so they were not allowing children that were 12 and under to come into the hospital. So they couldn't come to the hospital. And I was in the hospital for 6 days. And so they, that was time that they didn't get to see me. But once I got home and I think they saw that I was good, I was slow.
Yeah.
They were fine. But that's the only time where I really felt like that I could see the effect that it had on them as well. You said mentally, spiritually. So spiritually, I've always been a woman of faith. So my relationship with God, I think, was just deepened and strengthened through that process. When you are going through that, I mean, that's the only thing you have to hold on to. You can lose a job and lose money, but all that stuff can be made back, right? But when you're dealing with your health, it's that one thing that you can't control. Like you have no control over where it's going to go, what's going to happen. And so you truly have to trust in God. And I always tell people that it created moving mountain faith in me. That's what it did. Like it, yeah. And I think since then, like when stuff comes up, it's
not important,
15
right?
minutes. 15 minutes.
That's all I got.
It gets 15 minutes of my energy and my time.
And
if
then
it's not going to matter next week, we moving on.
Yeah.
I mean, because I have been in a place where I didn't know what the next day was going to hold, right? Exactly. And so when you've gone through that and you have things come up that are considered to be what I would call controllable.
Yeah.
Then it just affects you differently. You don't stress.
So what about your husband, Steve?
Yeah, I was going to say, he always says, I don't worry. He's like, you just don't seem to worry about anything. And I'm like, I don't worry about things. Things bother me. I said, but I just don't give them a ton of energy. I prefer to use that energy on something that makes me happy, that I enjoy, versus worrying about something. I think for him, he is the worry wart in our marriage and always has been. I do think that he was a great caregiver during that time. Like he just made sure, I was good. He's always been kind of like that, even when I'm just sick with like a cold. But just seeing him in that process, I later found out, and it really touched me. It didn't make me necessarily sad, but it just showed me, I guess, his depth of love and concern. But he would not cry in front of me. So he wouldn't like get upset or emotional, but he would go to work and cry.
Yeah.
And so when he told me that, I was like, oh my gosh, why? He's like, because I didn't want you to be worried about me. He's like, I want you to be worried about you. So I think that was just eye-opening as well. But when you go through something like that, it just, I mean, it strengthens the marriage. I mean, you really know, like, who's there for you. He's there. He's gonna be there for me.
Well, let me ask you this. I call them snowflakes. Those are the ones that were there at the very beginning, and then they kind of fell off. Did you have anybody surprise you during this time? Like surprise you and be there, or surprise you and fade away for whatever reason? Because I find out some people don't know what to say, so they fade away in the background. And then all of a sudden they show up. Or did it strengthen some relationships that you didn't know you had that bond with?
I would say I don't think there was anyone that I thought wasn't going to be there that actually was there, right? I think what it did is that it showed me how strong my network was.
Oh, wow.
I've always considered myself to be, my motto is I'm blessed to be a blessing, right? And I just feel like from meeting, like I don't meet a stranger. I just know a ton of people. And you don't realize how much people want to be a blessing back to you until you're going through this process. So for me, it was just like, wow, like when I did the meal train, and I also set up some play dates for the kids, like there was not a slot that wasn't filled. Like we had so much food. And so many, like I got flowers and balloons, just gifts of all sorts as well. And then, individuals come to pick up the kids and take them to do things. So I think for me, it really like showed the depth of the connections, the depth of the connections that I have. Because, there are people you don't talk to very often, like throughout the year. I consider myself to be good friends with people, but I may not, just life gets busy and we don't reach out as much. And so even like those relationships with people that were not even here in Charlotte and how they were still making sure that we were taken care of here, like it spoke volumes to me. Like it just made me realize, okay, God, I feel like I'm doing right. I'm doing what I should be doing. And it felt good. That felt good.
So what has been your give back? Because I drove all the way from Durham to go to one of your things. It was amazing. Like that's going to hang up in my new home, the art that they were able to create, because I didn't create what they created.
Well, COVID-19 might have put a little damper on 2020.
Yeah.
But I did year before last, so it started in 2018. I did a fundraiser for a group called YSC, Young Survivor Coalition.
Love them.
And basically what I did is for the month of October, I raised money by doing 30 miles, running, walking, whatever, 30 miles in the month of October, and I asked people to donate at least $1 per mile. Okay. Right? So that was part of the fundraiser. The other half of the fundraiser was for basically we went to a place in Mooresville called Hip Hip Hooray, and you go in and you make wreaths, paint wreaths for your door, beautiful wreaths that can go on the door. You can actually hang them anywhere in your home. And so for everyone that painted an item, there was a $10 donation made to YSC.
Oh, wow.
So what I did this past year in 2019, I was like, well, I don't want to do it again for me. I want to sponsor another breast cancer survivor. And so this year, or in 2019, I was able to sponsor my friend Tony.
Yes.
She was a 1-year survivor. And her organization, it's slipping my mind right now. I cannot think of the name of it right now. But we basically did a donation towards to that particular organization. And so I wanted to do the same thing this year. And I was going to have Cassandra as my survivor. But again, I don't know what COVID-19 is going to do in this environment. So that's one way I definitely like to give back. And then I have just tried to be open to anyone. I've had I would say about 10 people have come to me who had friends or people they knew that had breast cancer and just said, hey, can you talk to them? There was one lady, I never met her in person. She worked with a church member of mine, but she got my phone number and we started communicating with each other. So I would text and check on her whenever her surgeries were. And we still have not met to this day. but I'll check up on her every now and then. I had another very interesting story. A lady, her name is Darylyn. I think she wouldn't mind me saying her name, but she reached out to me after my plastic surgeon said that she wanted to talk to someone who had the same surgery done. So we ended up talking. She and I actually met right before I was leaving to go out of town on vacation. And I found out she worked at the bank.
Oh, wow.
She's a Bank of America employee.
Oh, wow.
So it was just, and she and I see each other probably once every few months. We try to get together for coffee, but it's just amazing, like the relationships and stuff you build with people just based upon your common journey.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing. It's amazing.
And it's crazy that you build these relationships with total strangers, but you have something in common. And your conversation with people who've gone through is totally different than your conversation. Like with my twin sister, I never want her to ever have to experience this. But I know that I can't call her and say the things that have gone on with me and she would totally get it. But I can call you and say, girl, how's that scar tissue doing on your back? Like, how is that going? How did that nipple thing go?
And I like swell every time in my abdomen area. Every time I like work out, it's like, I don't want this water here. Get away.
Like, how did that nipple?
3 pounds.
It's like, how's your nipple tattoo? Like, oh, who's gonna understand that, right?
Or how is this your nipple in general?
Yeah, having those type of conversations. And it's funny. I always say it's funny that we can laugh at this because I really wanted to have you, Cassandra, and my girl Vanessa to all be together and do a round table because our experience is so different. And how we got through it is so different. But we're all connected. Which is so crazy. And to see that I have 4 dear friends that have gone through in a different way, it's crazy. I have a picture of you, me, and Cassandra back in the day. And I'm like, us 3 in this picture.
Who would have ever thought?
Yeah. I would have never, ever.
Because when we first met in the mountains that year, you were...
Yeah.
You were dating.
I was dating.
Like, I don't even think you were engaged at that point. So I'm like,
life was good.
Who would have ever known? Yes. Who would have ever known?
Well, is there anything else you would like to share with my little audience out here before I let you get back to your evening? Guys, we have been in the house. How long have you been in the house? Like, from work?
I've been working from home since March 16th.
March 16th is my day too. Are you feeling like you're ready to choke anybody out, or are you good?
Yeah, and I go out to like do the essential shopping, to get things I need to get. We actually ate out tonight, so I did not have to cook. My husband gave me a break from cooking.
Oh.
A break. He said, I'm going to give you a break. But what I have been doing though is getting out and just walking. Like I've been walking / running and then doing some weight workouts too. It just helps me clear my mind. It gets me out the house. The weather has been gorgeous, so I'm like, take advantage of it. Please take advantage of it. But what I'm realizing is that I like to eat, and so I have to move. Because if not, I'm going to go back. I'm going to be on my 600-pound life.
I said whoever is skinny is going to be fat. Whoever's fat going to be skinny. Whoever was sober going to be alcoholic. I mean, I can't call it because I don't know when we're getting out of this house. But I do know that exercise definitely decreases your rate of a reoccurrence. So we need to jump on a bike or walk a mile or do whatever. But I want to thank you so much for taking the time out on a late Thursday night to talk to me. I am planning to do that round table because I think it would be interesting for all of us to sit together and just be live. This Sunday marks my 9th year. So
praise God.
Yes. So I am interviewing.
We're going to have a Zoom party.
We're going to have a Zoom party. Look, this must have been a good interview because I did not even drink out of my normal drinking glass that I make sure I have for every podcast that I do. But on that note, I'm going to go ahead and take a sip. Well, sweetie, I want to thank you for sitting with me, and it has been a pleasure being your friend, and I look forward for us doing our little Zoom party, probably on Thursday. Have something in your glass.
I promise I will. I will. I have a few bottles. I promise I will.
All right then, sweetie. I appreciate you.
All right.
All right, guys. You're listening to Chemo Glow with Regina.
Sound editing is provided by Josh Masters. If you like what you hear, please rate and review the podcast in iTunes. Connect with Chemo Glow on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. You can also find more content at chemoglow.com.